yield as much time as he may consume to Congressman Shaka Fattah.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Well, I thank the gentlelady, and I thank the chairman of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. We had, as an appropriator, we were going to proceed in an appropriations bill with this naming, but after consulting with the chairman, he felt that it was important that we proceed under regular order and that this was important enough that we have an actual piece of legislation, and he guided me through this process, and I want to thank the chairman for his advice on the matter. And also, we were able to round up every single member of the federal delegation from our state who were enthusiastic in their support for this, and our co-sponsors. And our 2 United States senators have introduced a companion bill in the Senate, Senator Toomey and our senior senator, Senator Casey. And we thank Senator Toomey and Casey for their support. So I rise today. Bill Gray served for 12 years, but as Budget Committee Chair and as Majority Whip, he was an accomplished lawmaker and leader in a bipartisan way. He helped to lead the budget negotiations with the President Reagan's administration, which had first sought to eliminate Amtrak. But in the conclusion, it was Secretary Stockman who says that it was Bill Gray's leadership that allowed for necessary cuts to be made in other areas of the budget, but for Amtrak to continue to receive the necessary support so that it could be a vital part of our transportation infrastructure. And he also, as the chairman has indicated, directly impacted the station in Philadelphia by arranging for some urban development action grants to be the focus of revitalization of the station at 30th Street. Now, I live in a city in which we have the Betsy Ross Bridge, the Walt Whitman Bridge, the Ben Franklin Parkway, but to add to this now, the Bill Gray Station at 30th Street, I think appropriately recognizes the historical contribution of a young man who was elected at 38, who served in this Congress, provided extraordinary service. When he left here, he went on to lead the nation's most aggressive effort ever in terms of scholarships for students to pursue colleges who were coming from underrepresented categories. He served as a special envoy for President Clinton in terms of interacting around challenges in Haiti. And on the day where we had the Young African Leaders Summit here in Washington, some 500 young leaders, Gray is most remembered in Africa because he championed and passed successfully the divestiture of South Africa, the legislation that would affect the divestiture of stocks to end apartheid. And he also created, as a freshman, he passed a bill that created the African Development Bank. And freshmen at that point, and even today, find it difficult to pass major legislation in our House. So I think it's great that we have come to this moment. And even though I passed other very important pieces of legislation, I am extraordinarily personally honored to be able to carry this bill. I thank the gentlelady from Florida, the ranking member, and the chairman, and all of the courtesies that have been extended, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlelady from Florida.
Yes, I have one quick question for you. Were you aware, Mr. Fattah, that the gentleman was raised at Florida A&M University on the campus where his father was the president?
I am aware, if the gentlelady would yield, I am aware that he was raised by educators and that his father was the president of this great college in Florida. And I think it's just appropriate that you would come in from Florida to help us move this bill forward. But Bill Gray loved you, and he loved the state of Florida. He made that his home once he retired from the Congress representing Pennsylvania.
Were you also aware that he was one of the most outstanding preachers this country has ever known?
I am convinced that in terms of someone mounting a pulpit, there's been very few people who could claim the mantle that he claimed as pastor of Bright Hope Baptist Church. And he was just an extraordinary figure. And there's so many stories on a bipartisan basis that could be told. I think it's great that years, decades after his service, and before a year has passed since his passing, that the House has taken the step today to honor his service. It honors us that he served here. Thank you.
Thank you to his wife, his children, his family. I yield back the balance of my time, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Well, I appreciate the gentlelady yielding back the balance of her time, so I get the final word. Sometimes I always don't get the final word with the gentlelady from Florida, but I didn't know if you knew that he was a graduate of Franklin and Marshall College in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So educated in a great school in central Pennsylvania, so we like to take some credit. I'll definitely yield to the
I
gentleman.
was aware of this, and he constantly reminded those from Philadelphia that it wasn't Penn or some of these other institutions in which he got fortified for his national service role.
Well, I appreciate you gentlemen pointing that out. I'm a graduate of Dickinson College, which used to be the MAC, the Mid-Atlantic Conference, so as F&M was in, so I share that heritage of the MAC conference with Mr. Gray. And the other thing that I wanted to point out, that his family moved to Philadelphia in 1949. His grandfather, when his father took over the church, that his grandfather, and then of course Bill Gray led that church, so that he was a third generation pastor at the Bright Hope Baptist Church in Philadelphia. And with pointing that out, as some folks around here know my heritage, I spoke to my father this weekend and asked him what he remembered about Bill Gray, and he said he was smart, he was hardworking, he was tough, but he said he was a true gentleman. So he sent his best down here for this debate also. And finally, I just want to thank Amtrak for working with us to be able to move this forward. Joe, President of Amtrak, Joe Boardman, and his staff were very diligent, working very hard to make sure that this became a reality. And for me, thanks to the gentleman for his kind words, but being able to name it for a Pennsylvanian, someone with such a tremendous background and experience and help for the people of Pennsylvania, it's been an honor for me to take part in this. So with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back, all time having expired. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill, H.R. 4838? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the Chair, two-thirds being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.